Just when it seemed like things couldn't possibly get any worse, our world spiraled further into chaos. Heavily pregnant and without a job to sustain herself, she had no choice but to turn to social welfare. But it wasn't long before the police came knocking. The weight of accusations and a relentless personal nightmare haunted her every waking moment, assuming she even managed to sleep. Lydia's journey into motherhood wasn't easy. She found out she was pregnant with her first child at 21, but by then, she and the baby's father, Jamie, had already broken up. Even though they had gone their separate ways, they ended up having a second child together about a year later. Their relationship was a constant cycle of breaking up and getting back together, making life even more complicated. Eventually, Lydia found herself alone again, this time with 2 young children to care for. With no job and no way to support her family, she struggled to keep up with the demands of raising a baby. She knew she needed help. Out of options, she applied for welfare benefits, but the state required her to prove Jamie was the father through a DNA test. Lydia took the test and went home, expecting financial support to help her get back on her feet. But instead of relief, she received a shocking call from the prosecutor's office a few months later. When she asked if they could just tell her the results over the phone, the official simply said, "You really need to come in." And that's when everything changed. She went into the back room and it was just him and the lady. They sat there and just stared at her. Finally, she got an answer, and it was exactly the answer she expected. He said, "Well, he's 99% the father." For Lydia, this was just a formality. She already knew that Jamie was the father. However, they kept talking and nothing they said made any sense at all. What he was about to say would shake Lydia's world to its very core. The prosecutor looked her right in the eyes and said, "There is absolutely no way that you're the mother." At first, she was confused, and then she let out a laugh. This must be a joke, right? Yet, as she looked back at him, she could see that he was deadly serious. What exactly was going on? The only thing Lydia could think was that somehow the test results had been messed up. However, the prosecutor was taking matters extremely seriously, and there was a valid reason for his concern. Nonetheless, Lydia was stunned. She couldn't believe what the DNA results said. They were serious. She could see the seriousness in their faces. I mean, they were just staring her down, and then the interrogation started right there in that little back room, without warning and without mercy. The questions were endless and accusatory. Are you Lydia Fairchild? Who are you really? Where did you get these kids from? Did your sister have these children, and are you using them to commit welfare fraud? And there it was, the explanation for everything that was happening to her. They thought she'd just been caught committing fraud, and they were relentless. They just kept drilling her. Lydia remembers vividly that her test results were odd, to say the least. A normal DNA test proving the link between mother and child would show a 50% match when comparing the DNA patterns. The state prosecutor knew that there was a 1 in a billion chance that Lydia was the birth mother of both children. Her pattern had 0 matches for either of her children. She demanded a retest. There was no lab error. The family was tested 3 separate times, and each time the tests came back clearly, showing that Lydia was not the boy's mother and that Jamie was the father of both. In complete hysterics, Lydia called the only person she could her mother. Lydia called me up, and she was hysterically crying when she said that she got the test back, and it said that she wasn't the mother. I just started laughing. I couldn't understand why she was crying. I said, "That's so stupid. They got to do it again." And she said, "Mom, they've done it 3 times and it's not working." The future of Lydia's family would not have gone further than this. She would have been imprisoned if not for one woman, half a thousand miles away, named Karen Keegan. Karen discovered an extremely rare genetic disorder when she was diagnosed with an illness that required her to receive a new kidney. Obviously, the first people that were tested were her 3 children, who were already grown up, and her biological sons. None of her sons matched her DNA. Karen became Lydia's only hope, even though she had no idea Lydia existed. She was deeply involved in scientific research, working with investigators for various reasons. To her, it was about more than just science. It was about how DNA was shaping the justice system and its growing role in legal cases. Despite her willingness to be a guinea pig, no one knew exactly what to research until a remark pointed them in the right direction. The lead that set them on the right course came in the form of a comment from a colleague tucked away in a letter. It noted that it was very rare and that only 40 cases were said to have been known worldwide. But perhaps it was the answer they were looking for. Was there a possibility that Karen was a chimera? Chimerism is an extremely rare condition where people have not just one but two DNA profiles. It was clearly stated that this is a very rare event, and to have someone who looks externally normal and is able to have children makes it an even rarer consideration. The likelihood of them picking up on it and deciding to embark on additional testing to establish whether or not Karen was a chimera was very low. Could Karen Keegan really be a chimera? If she had a second set of DNA, it could explain everything. Inside the body of chimeras, there are not one but two completely different genetic identities created from separate sets of DNA, literally two people in one body. It sounded impossible, and most of the studied cases reported physical abnormalities, such as completely different skin pigmentation and very unusual traits. Karen didn't have any, and neither did Lydia. Lydia was facing the full brunt of the law, being summoned to court to prove her relationship to her two young children when she found out that she was pregnant again, and once more, Jamie was the father. It was too much to bear, and she felt alone, with no idea what to do. No one would believe her. She called every lawyer she could, but not one of them would take her case. They all told her the same thing. DNA is foolproof. There's no way to win your case. It was her versus the state. The trial went badly for Lydia. The judge agreed that, based on the existing evidence, Lydia was not the biological mother. The prosecutors wanted separate guardians to be appointed for each child while the investigations continued. Jamie stood beside the mother of his children the entire time, also completely baffled. I knew they'd be taken away because they said they were already setting up guardian parents to do just that. I just didn't understand. It's not like the kids were in danger, and you know that she's a good mom. I just felt like this was just one big scam. The judge was torn. On one hand, the DNA evidence didn't lie. He had no choice but to side with it. But Lydia's emotions and determination to keep her children were extremely unusual for a person who was trying to work the system for benefits. He ordered a very strange action to be taken, using the imminent birth of her third baby as a simple experiment. He did something unprecedented. He ordered that someone be there to witness the birth and to take blood from the baby right then and there. He said, "We'll go from there." When Lydia went into labor, all attention was on the birth. Despite the turmoil in her life, she delivered Alfie. Blood samples were taken immediately, and she faced an agonizing 2-week wait for the results. I'll never forget those 2 years. It was like a nightmare, she recalled. Unlike most mothers who bring their newborns home with joy, she lived in constant fear that her children could be taken away at any moment. Jamie had his own worries too. If the test confirmed Alfie was hers, the court might assume they had lied all along. Their only hope was for the results to come back negative. The results, when they finally arrived, were nothing short of astonishing. Just as Lydia had insisted all along, there was no DNA match between her and the newborn. She thought this would be the moment she could prove her innocence, but instead, she was hit with an even more severe accusation. Desperate for justice, Lydia secured a lawyer just in time. The prosecutor was entertaining outrageous theories, from surrogacy gone wrong to criminal activity, even suggesting she had abducted the children. The scientific evidence seemed too bizarre to be true. In rare cases, a phenomenon known as chimerism occurs, where a single organism is composed of cells from 2 or more individuals, carrying 2 distinct sets of DNA. One way this can naturally happen in humans is when a fetus absorbs its fraternal twin early in pregnancy. The surviving twin then retains both genetic codes, essentially becoming 2 people in one body. In an incredible twist, another woman named Karen had recently been diagnosed as a chimera, leading doctors to consider the possibility for Lydia. With this revelation, further testing was conducted, and at last, there was an explanation for everything she had endured. After extensive new examinations, the judge ruled in Lydia's favor, affirming what she had been saying all along. She was, without a doubt, the biological mother of all three of her children.